just in a controlled pour. That way you can get all the water out, you can drain it, and then shake the noodles and just let it sit for a couple seconds, or no more than 60 seconds, just to try and drain as much water out as you can. Or if you want, like I did, I put it in the bowl with paper towel, so whilst the noodles are sitting, I can kind of get a little bit of other stuff done. Now, that said, I did mention before noodles can clump together when they come out of a pot and they just sit there. As you can see right now, the noodles are looking a little bit dry now because they have been taken out of the hot water. So to combat this, what I did is I dumped it out of the colander into the metal bowl. After I did remove the paper towel, of course. Now, what I do after that is I add a little bit of oil to it, and you mix it all together. Now, with this amount of noodles, I had to add a little bit more oil than I would have preferred, but what adding oil does is it coats each noodle. Like, you want to mix everything around, coat the noodles, and this way it prevents you from having the noodles clumping together. So it acts as like a lubricant on the noodles, so it keeps everything individualized. It has like that thin film of oil around it. Now, before I play this next part, I just want to give everyone a heads up that may have ASMR sensitivity or something. I did add the background noise for this one, just so you can hear the sizzle of the vegetables and the onions and the garlic as I'm cooking it, because I think that's an amazing sound. You just hear that as a cook, when you listen to that, it just sounds so amazing. Listening to how all those flavors are cooking and coming together. Now, I did make a mistake here, and that's my fault. I'll explain in a second. So obviously you want to get your pan hot enough, and then you want to add some oil to it and just kind of swirl it around so it coats the pan. It makes things a little bit easier. Now, this is where I made my mistake. I added garlic first. You shouldn't actually add garlic first if you are planning on cooking onions. Actually, wait, is the ASMR playing on this? Oh, maybe not. Shoot, okay, maybe not. But like I was saying though, you actually want to cook the onions first. That way it gets translucent, it sweats. You want to sweat the onions. That releases all the oils and the moisture from it, and it makes it so much more flavorful. It impacts this wow factor, and you don't want raw onions when you're chomping on pasta. So by sweating the onions, you want to get them to when they're translucent. That way, they're soft, they're tender, they have that flavor, and then you want to add the garlic afterwards. Depending if you're using fresh garlic, you definitely want to do that after you're cooking the onions, because garlic can burn quite easily, especially when it's sliced thin. It'll burn a lot faster than, say, putting a whole clove of garlic in. And the reason you want to actually add garlic after your onions is because that adds a burst of flavor to it. When I'm doing the garlic first, I realized that kind of cooked off some of the flavor. That's my fault. I wasn't thinking. You definitely want to add that garlic though after you're cooking the onions, so then everything has that, it can soak in that onion juices and mix with the garlic flavor. So as you can see here, I'm continuing on. I'm cooking these onions down. I did speed this section up a little bit because it does take a little while to cook down onions. But as you can see, they're slowly starting to change color from that white color to that kind of light greenish tint to it. That means your onions are now becoming translucent, which is, like I said before, a really, really great thing to do. It imparts so much more flavor into your food. Okay, so now I'm also adjusting the heat too. You want to do this at a high heat, or I did this all through a medium to a medium high heat, just because I don't want to burn my food. Because obviously if you heat up a pan to a high, and then you're putting in things like cream or something, it could curdle afterwards, and that's going to leave a very bad taste. So using a medium to a medium-high heat, I find worked best. It still got the pan hot enough that I could cook my onions through, cook my garlics. This is where you would also add other ingredients like mushrooms, or what else could you add? You could add broccoli even if you wanted to, just so it cooks and it softens up, because this is when you want to have your vegetables softened. Because when you add everything else into it, later down the road, you only need to cook it for a little short time at that point. So you want to get all your hard vegetables cooked at this point in time, so it's all easier to eat. It's not biting into like something hard. Now this is where I'm adding the shrimp. I want to add the shrimp first so that it can kind of mix with the onion juice, the garlic flavors, and it just also, if your shrimp is still kind of cold or frozen, depending on what kind of shrimp you're using, this is a good time for it to also warm up the shrimp and defrost it a little bit more if you find it's still a little bit of ice on it. Now I'm just going to pause this for a quick second. I forgot to mention this before. With the shrimp, if you decide to do raw shrimp, it is suggested that you do cook it